Come on, everybody, let's pick up the pace. Pick up the pace. We're on time crunch. We need to get things out. You, help him. Yes, you, I'm looking at you. Huh? What? I can't hear you. You want to build a tractor? Oh, you want to build a character. Okay. Well, in the world of EBERRON, there's a lot of different options. In order to pick the best for you, let's go up into my office and we can speak where it's not so noisy. Let's go. All right. Hello, Acolytes. Welcome to the Cleric Corner. My name is Riker, and here we talk about all things Dungeons & Dragons, tapping into our higher powers to create worlds more unique and stories more impactful. Am I going to leave these on for the rest of the video? We'll see how we go, because these ears are bugging. In the world of EBERRON, often described as a pulp noir, is a vast and expansive world, outlining a powerful history of betrayal and magic, all leading up to a 100-year war of technology and living machines. And going into the setting, we want to make the best characters as players and the best NPCs as DMs. The question is, how does your character fit in? How does it tie into the greater story? How can you really feel like you're a part of EBERRON? Well, luckily, I've done the work for you, because boy is there a lot. I'll be throwing over 50 different ideas and concepts to help you find something that you resonate with. Then at the end, going over flavorful feats and backgrounds as well. This is not a lore video, but if you do want further clarification on the things that I'll discuss, I'm sure your DM will happily oblige. Now put on your artificer gloves and glasses. We're about to create some magic. And of course, we start at the creation of the world, the Genesis. In the beginning, 3 dragons called Sybaris, EBERRON, and Kyber came together to create the universe. However, Kyber wished to rule everything, and so they attacked Sybaris and tore him to shreds. In retaliation, EBERRON then attacked Kyber, but was unable to defeat them. So EBERRON then sacrificed themselves in order to become a living prison around Kyber. This then created the material realm, with the Underdark, or the Underworld, being Kyber within it. And then Sybaris became a ring of dragon shards that orbit the planet. As such, the influence of these ancient dragons are everywhere, so it brings us to our first character concepts. Perhaps a draconic sorcerer that holds one of these Sybaris dragon shards, or a druid that's connected to the land that's literally EBERRON the dragon, so their magic takes on more of a draconic feel, possibly a moon druid, or a group of ascendant dragon monks that tap into this power of creation. But next we have the age of demons, about 100,000 years ago. Demons were birthed and climbed out of this underworld of Kyber to lay waste to the upper world. A group of new deities called the Sovereign Host worked together to push back this force. But during this war, there was a group that betrayed the Sovereign Host and then became the Dark Six. But despite this betrayal, a group of Quaddles came together and sacrificed themselves in order to create something called the Silver Flame. This Silver Flame enabled them to bind these demons inside Kyber dragon shards, a purple alternative to the Sybaris ones. So with these deities, I imagine possibly having a Forge Cleric that works with these silver flames in order to create Pokeballs of sorts for these demons. Or a Trickery Cleric that follows this Dark Six and works to free these demons again from these Kyber shards. It is important to say, however, that in this world, the gods do not interact with the material realm. Belief in these deities are based on faith alone, and possibly clerics going through seminary or a school, much like a wizard does. Some other fun concepts would be a wildfire druid that instead of normal fire embodies the silver flame, or a phantom rogue that frequently traps individuals into these Kyber shards. But after this war of gods and demons, 2 groups came out of that continued another war, the Shadow War. You have the Lords of Dust, who were followers of these demons, and the Chamber from the Secret Society of Dragons that were dragons. Their war was to stop the Lords of Dust to manipulate something called the Draconic Prophecy to unleash these demons again. These prophecies taking on many forms, such as inscriptions on the walls of caverns or ruins, or patterns in the sky that predict certain events to come if certain other things happen. One example might say that
the Bear King was killed by a sorrowful assassin in the Shadow of Mourning, and then the crown will fall from his nation.
Which, depending on what the crown or the king could mean, could predict different things. The Lords of Dust were adamant on making these prophecies predict what they wanted to happen. So these prophecies were often an opportunity to manipulate an outcome. In this case, to allow the demons to walk the earth once more. But as far as characters go, it would be really cool to have a divination wizard that's based on one of these prophecies, either to search out their locations or have a personal vendetta on how to manipulate one to something that they want to happen. Or you could be a stars druid that sees these warnings in the sky and wishes to stop the event from happening. But 20,000 years later, we then get to see the Age of Giants. Having finally rid the world of these demonic incursions, the dragons finally had some time to teach the denizens of the world some magic, and this included the giants. However, the daughter of Kyber, who was trapped in a Kyber shard, still had enough power to influence the motivations of these giants, causing them to enslave the elves and create the race of Drow. This ambition drove them to not only conquer the material realm, but also the dream realm where the Quori lived. These spiritual forces fought back the giants with a force that they were not prepared for. And in desperation, the giants destroyed one of EBERRON's moon in order to push back the plane of dreams further to the edges of the multiverse. And now the only way that the Quori can interact with the material realm is embodying the minds of the Kalash Star race. More on them later, but the elves took this opportunity of a loss to escape the clutches of the giants and settle their own continent. There they started the religion of the Undying Court that celebrates the interaction between life and death. Now the dragons eventually came and slapped the wrist of the giants and took away their magic as well as their magic items, which are still somewhere hidden away within the land. So as far as characters go, imagine yourself being a Drow Rutanite fighter who was a descendant of one of these slaves, or a Kalastar hunter ranger or a Psy warrior fighter who shares the mind with the Quori and intends to continue their revenge on the giants. You could be a grave cleric or ancestral barbarian from the Undying Court that draws their power from their ancestors, or an opportunistic scout rogue that wishes to scour the land for these missing giant magic items. But next we have the Age of Monsters, starting about 40,000 years ago. Following the elves, all races started to pop up and populate different areas of the world. However, one race reigned supreme during this era: the Goblinoids. One spiritual Goblinoid leader gathered everyone and united them into one faction called the Tacani, and this empire became a civilization superpower. However, almost as a reaction to this, a species called the Delkir came from the plane of Zoriat. Basically think of the Far Realm from D&D Forgotten Realms lore. But yet we have another war breaking out again, but this time we have goblins and hobgoblins versus mind flayers, aboleths, and beholders. But with the help of the orc druids of Corvair, the gatekeepers, they were able to push back this force not back into Zoriat, but into the underworld with Kyber. However, not before the Delkir was able to unleash a mental contagion or a psychic sickness upon the continent. And then this mental sickness drove the Goblinoids back to their savage nature and their civilization went to ruin. However, many Dakani still did get away and sealed themselves away in caves for a time when they can unite under one banner again. For your character, you might think of being a Goblinoid redemption paladin who wants to bring this moment to fruition, to bring about the rise of Dakani again. Or you're an aberrant mind sorcerer hobgoblin who is still affected by this mental disease, or a shepherd druid or horizon walker ranger who is a member of this orc druid clan who are still searching these planes of Zoriat portals to close them. Or you can be a fathomless warlock coming from the Cult of the Dragon, this cult being a byproduct of the war as they started to worship these mind flayers and aboleths afterwards. But now before we get to the modern age, if this video is something that you like and you'd like to see more of, consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel. This obviously helps the YouTube algorithm and gets my video out there if that's something you want help with, but it also tells me that I should probably be looking into a Ravnica setting or a Ravenloft setting next, to continue to give you inspiration for those characters if you're playing those games. But if this video does get you excited to play in an EBERRON setting, you can get the book through my affiliate Amazon link in the description below. But now let's bring us into the modern age, about 5,000 years ago. Humans, elves, and dwarves now settled on top of the ruins of the Dakani and the Age of Giants. And then a special form of birthmark called the Dragon Marks started appearing on a lot of the humanoids, a physical manifestation of the draconic prophecy that imbues individuals with innate magic. And those that had similar markings and birthmarks came together and formed clans or houses. And with these people forming organizations of similar power together, they created 13 economic powers. And 13 is a lot of houses, so we're gonna do a little rapid fire. First, we have the House of Medani, or the Mark of Detection. This house specializes in risk assessment and management of both physical and social threats. These can be your whisper bards or inquisitive rogues that help with interrogations or investigations. Then we have House Thrashk. or the Mark of Finding. These are your bounty hunters or trackers that track down these Kyber shards from places or people. I'd like to play with classes, say the Fey Wanderer Ranger or the Thief Rogue for this one. Then we have the House Vidalis, or the Mark of Handling. Trainers and breeders of exotic creatures that make good Beastmaster Rangers, Drake Warden Rangers, or Shepherd Druids. And I should mention that they also have herds of dinosaurs, and there are also rumors of selective breeding to make the best human. Next we have the House Durasco with the Mark of Healing. Practitioners of both mundane and magical healing. They can be your alchemist artificers or Way of Mercy monks. They too have rumors, but with this time creating biological weapons. Next, the House of Galanda with the Mark of Hospitality. Usually the owners of inns and taverns, the providers of leisure. Easily your glamour bard that entertains a crowd, or your abjuration wizard that focuses on protective magic. And then House Caneth with the Mark of Making. Toolsmiths, armorers, and tinkerers from the nation of Sire, which we'll mention again in a bit. They created transportation in EBERRON, being powered by trapped elementals within Kyber crystals. Your Forge Cleric, Battlemaster Artificers, or creation bards all find their home here. Next, the House of Orion with the Mark of Passage. They are the ones that manage this transportation. Through airships, earth sleds, and the much famous lightning rail, they control the navigation. Conjuration wizards might shine here, as well as Gloomstalker Rangers. Although it would be interesting to see an accident involving one of these elemental batteries to create a Storm Sorcerer or Genie Warlock. Then House Civis with the Mark of Scribing, a house dedicated to books, cartography, and records. Be a Scribe's Wizard Interpreter, or a Lore Bard that delivers the newspaper. Then House Zenith with the Mark of the Sentinel. You got your warriors, bodyguards, and sellswords. Take a whack at Eldritch Knight, Kinsei Monk, Hexblade, or Totem Warrior Barbarian. Next we have the House of Shadow with the appropriately named Mark of Shadow. Spies and assassins and experts of espionage. Try Illusionist Wizards, Assassin Rogues, or Way of Shadow Monks. And then House Lorandar, or Mark of the Storm. Weather controllers and elemental wranglers. Possibly a Circle of Land Druid could be your character, or it would be fun to kind of reflavor a Swarm Keeper to instead have an elemental companion. Then we have the House of Kundarak, Mark of Warding. Banks, locks, security, and extra dimensional vaults that keep your valuables safe. And they actually align themselves pretty closely with the Gatekeeper Druids. But you can also use the Clockwork Soul Sorcerer, or the Watcher's Paladin, or an Abjuration Wizard. And then finally we have a mark that actually has no house. The Aberrant Dragon Mark. These marks are dangerous, unknown, and forbidden, popping up randomly on random people. These could create your Wild Magic Sorcerers, or your Spores Druid, or an Oathbreaker if they're getting kicked out of the clan or house that they were in originally. But even with these Aberrant Dragon marks, these houses lived in economic harmony for hundreds of years, with a brief altercation around 2,000 years ago with an event called the Sundering. Remember Quori from the Plane of Dreams? Yeah, so there was a group of bad ones that came and bonded with a bunch of creatures from the material realm, including elves, ogres, and Yuntai, that they would come into their dreams and manipulate them. Those that fully bonded with these Quori became the Inspired, or the Chosen. They eventually conquered the continent of Sorlona, and I think are still there today. But people from that area are now worshipping these Inspired, giving you the possibility to be a Great Old One Warlock. Or you personally are one of these Inspired that shares your vessel with one of these Quori. Play with this relationship with the Echo Knight Fighter or the Astral Self Monk, and your extension of self is one of these bad Quoris. But now about 1,000 years ago, a man named Galifar united all of the different nations again under one banner, marking this time as the first year of the kingdom. The Church of the Flame was also founded during this time after a paladin using the Silver Flame to banish another demon, and other religions pop up as well, including the Blood of Vol. Their religion focused on the divinity of self rather than any god. So be an Arcana or Death Cleric that has no god at all. Or of course be a Light Cleric or an Oath of Glory Paladin from the Church of the Silver Flame. But it's also important to realize that some religions do have the opportunity to reach out to certain avatars or angels that do still embody those same religions. But that's really all what angels are in this setting, is embodiments of ideas or concepts. So think about being an Aasimar Devotion Paladin that embodies honesty and courage in a very meta way. But about year 894th year of the kingdom, probably the most historically relevant thing happened in EBERRON, at least to the setting, the Last War. Due to political betrayal, this plunged everyone in a war that lasted 100 years. House Caneth, the makers, then created the Warforged, war vehicles, airships, and arcane guns that they provided for the war. But with all of this science and arcane progression, It unfortunately ended up in the destruction of the continent they were from, Sire. The whole nation exploded like a nuclear bomb at the end of this 100-year war, creating a magical fallout of gray mist that still stands today. The entire population was killed or warped into weird monstrosities. This event was called the Mourning. And out of fear of this happening again and not knowing the origins or how it happened, it forced everyone into a peace treaty to avoid a possible genocide. And now 2 years after this event happened, your adventure begins. So be a warforged fighter gunslinger that originated or was born in this war. Or if you have a kind DM, give a vehicle instead of a mount to your cavalier. Perhaps you were some of the unlucky few who were affected by this fallout, becoming a wild magic barbarian or a shadow sorcerer. But with the nature of this explosion and this mist being completely unknown, you can literally make anything coming out from this mist. But now let's talk about the races of EBERRON, those who are uniquely native to this setting. We have already covered Kalashtar, but you can also be a shifter, a descendant from lycanthropes, those that embody both humanity and animal savagery to undergo an animal transformation. And I might add that this transformation can resemble any animal. Or be a changeling, who are counterparts to doppelgangers but a little more peaceful, and they work well with a lot of houses. The orcs of EBERRON also have unique abilities for this setting. And then of course warforged gaining racial rights at the end of this 100-year war. But if you're the specific race of elves, humans, dwarves, orcs, halflings, or gnomes, you can have a special subrace that gives you the power of dragon marks. Unfortunately, you might still have to be a spellcaster in order to tap fully into the abilities that it gives you. As far as backgrounds go, there's only one specific to this setting, the house agent, meaning that you can still be a part of these houses even if you don't have a specific dragon mark. But you can also choose an acolyte from one of the many religions, or a haunted one background if you came from the mists, an archaeologist that dives into the ruins of either goblins or giants, a clan crafter background would also help with much of the houses, a criminal or spy background might help with keeping tabs on the other nations even though we're out of war, or of course the soldier background if you did come from that war. I'd say you could even pull from the Strixhaven student backgrounds to help flavor the magic of some of your houses. But as far as feats go, especially depending on where you came from in the world, you can literally work with any one of them. But both Aberrant Dragonmark and Revenant Blade are both specific to this setting. The Dungeon Delver would be helpful with exploration, or you could pick up Eldritch or Metamagic Adept if you get too close to the mists. Obtaining Sybaris Dragon Shards might give you the gift of the Metallic, Chromatic, or Gem Dragon feats. Gunner for sure if you're playing with technology, and then Telekinetic or Telepathic if you have any relations with the Quori, or Skill Expert if you're heavily involved in one of the Dragonmark houses. But even with all of these options and directions, they don't need to be your story for your character. You can take an entirely unique direction with the story as players and DMs. But I hope that I helped you brainstorm some fun character ideas to create one that really inspires you, all to make your game a memorable one. Remember to comment below on your EBERRON characters that you've played or look forward to playing in the future. And if you plan to play with other settings in the future like Strixhaven or Exandria, check out this playlist next and keep the flow of ideas coming. But in the meantime, go out there and spread the good word of D&D and make the world a better place, both on and off your tables. See you in the next one.